there is major draft capital that Joe Douglas absolutely has to hit on. He needs to consider trading up in some circumstances. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. A similar trade that we saw with Elijah Vera Tucker in the last draft class. Go and get the guys that you believe in and that you know can help to fix the defense and the offense. And don't hesitate. I think that's the other thing. Be aggressive, Joe Douglas. And I know
2, 3, J-E-T-S, yes, yes, yes! Let's go! Let's go!
What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome into NYJ today. It is episode 39 of our live stream show. Hope you guys are having a great night. Thank you for tuning in live or after the show airs. It is great to be here with you two fellas. James, got Mike over here. Mikey boy, how you doing? How you feeling?
Feeling good. It's good to be with everyone.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row too. We've set a world record. I mean, I feel like
we're blowing minds right now. Blowing minds.
All right, James, how are you feeling tonight, man?
Good. We had some really good football this weekend, so it's exciting. Just a little bit left, but for us, we're in the off season, so good to be here.
Absolutely.
On the outside.
Yep.
Where we belong. we don't deserve to be on the main stage. We're that side stage at a music festival, where they put the shit bands. That's where we belong.
I hope that's not the case for long, but anyways, it is great to see you guys in the chat already filling it up. So thank you so much for tuning in. We got a lot of topics tonight, and we have a ton of mailbags as well. I thought we would start the show there actually with the mailbags because there are so many. And then we will get into our topics. Tonight we're going to be covering all kinds of stuff. Let's see what we got here. We got Chiefs versus Bills. Does that change the plans for the offseason? I think a lot of people are talking about how the Chiefs basically decimated the number one defense in the NFL. And so what are you really doing by, going heavy on defense in the offseason? We'll talk about that. We got Zach Wilson. How are we feeling in the terms of, is he still the franchise quarterback? Do we believe firmly that he is the future and confident in that? We have some free agent discussion. We'll talk about some guys that we like personally that we might go after. The Jets that are pending free agents that will become free agents. Who are we going to keep? Who do we want to keep? Who are we saying bye-bye to? And then we kind of have this discussion topic where we'll talk about some possible trade targets for the wide receiver position. There's a lot of interesting names that are being floated around out there online and amongst media members. So we will talk about all of those different things, but we are going to kick it off right now with the first mailbag. And the first mailbag is from Cali Jets, who is a big-time Twitter guy. Love talking to this guy on Twitter. If you guys are not following him, highly recommend it. He says, trade up to 2 for KT/Hutch. And he's saying sit at 4 and take O-line or safety. That's his, preference is to trade up for one of those edge rushers. Agree or disagree? And that's what he's asking us. Personally, he has no issues with giving up those picks to move up. So I will go ahead and spin it to James for the first question. What would you do? What would you prefer? O-line, safety at 410 at 4, or would you like to go trade up for that edge? I think I know your answer, though.
Yeah, I need to know, concrete what it's going to cost me to move up. I would be fine to trade if it's a couple day 2 picks. I'll trade up for Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't know if I'd be so inclined yet for Aiden Hutchinson. I don't know if that's a hot take. I just have him a little bit lower on the poll of elite athleticism that I think Kayvon has, and the explosiveness. It's kind of the whole package. I would be fine if it was we're giving up a couple day 2 picks to get Kayvon Thibodeau, I hopefully still have one of those early second round picks. But I wouldn't mind doing that and being comfortable doing that over the O-line or safety, only because safety, I'm not really sure I'm taking a safety at 4. And O-line, I would be fine with if they decide to go there 4. But if we can somehow walk away with Kayvon Thibodeau with that first pick, if it's not, obviously in this scenario it's number 2, and I don't have to give up 10th overall, I think it's a pretty no-brainer compared to the other options there.
Okay, perfect. Mike, I also think I know where you're leaning on this one, but would you be willing to trade up for an edge, or would you like to sit tight and draft that offensive lineman that you've been talking about?
Towards the end of the last stream, I'm not saying that the O-line has to come first, and I don't know if I would trade up. Let's just say we agreed to take edge on our first pick, whatever that is, 4, or whether you trade up. I don't necessarily think you need to trade up to get an edge. I mean, I talked about Carl Loftus. I mean, obviously Thibodeau is obviously getting all the attention, and I'm not saying that's a bad move. And obviously, I got to watch more off-season tape on these college talents. But to me, one of the things that plagued us was depth. I mean, the injuries just killed us. Obviously, we thought we had Carl Lawson to start the season. That didn't happen. Who's to say we don't have another, round of injury plague seasons, just with more games being played. I just think I'd rather not give up day 2 picks if we don't have to, just to keep that depth if we can. But I'm not opposed to it. I just think there's a lot of talent at edge in this draft, or at least some that will be around the picks that we have. So I'd rather stay where we are. However, if the opportunity or the offer is one that you can't refuse, then, and like James said, you'd be crazy to pass it by. But I would like to have more depth and still have the talent, the highest talent that we can.
You did a very nice job there. I think that's all fair stuff. I think that it's worth looking into if it is an option, if it's something that is available and maybe not super expensive. I don't want to give up 10. I'm never giving up 10 for that move. But I'd be willing to move up just a little bit. And then again, the flexibility with the draft, with having so many assets, you trade up from 4. Although it's not guaranteed, you could technically slide back from 10 to recoup. Like, that is something that could potentially happen. So I'm open to that for sure. There's no doubt about it in my mind, because again, you're getting a guy who is premium. Like, that's a premium blue chip prospect right there at the edge position, which we have not had in forever. We got Vern saying, let's go get that Greek freak. NY Jets Florida. He says, let's see if somebody wants number 4 and we can move back 3 or 4 to 5 spots. I'm open to that as well. I'm really not locked into any one particular thing with number 4 or 10. I'm pretty wide open right now. I do have preferences, but nothing like that. Grant Rude says, don't put that evil on me, Mike. Don't put that evil on me. Put it on him.
What's the countdown at John for our draft? We 97 days.
It's less than 100. Free agency is 50 tomorrow or 49 tomorrow, and then go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of time, right? Because you look, people have like mock draft 5.0s at this point. Like, it's
they really
crazy.
Do. Yeah.
And like, kind of one of the hot topics that I keep seeing here is Kayvon falling to 4. There was one, I think, Trevor from Pro Football Focus. I think he just has a new podcast with Connor Rogers.
Yep.
I think in his, he had Kayvon at 5 to the Giants after we took the NC State offensive lineman. So right now, as it stands, is it possible we don't have to go anywhere for Kayvon Thibodeau? It's something where right now that trend is, does he potentially fall? I guess to 4, yeah, falling. But maybe we don't have to do anything at all. Who knows?
I would be so happy. I don't know if you could hear it, but my voice started to choke up a little bit hearing those things. So if he falls to 4, I feel like that is the dream scenario. In all seriousness, I think if you get an edge to fall to 4, you can still go get the offensive lineman. You can still go get the receiver you need. Like, I just think that edge, the blue chip one specifically, is very hard to find. Doesn't mean that you can't get one after pick 4 because they do fall. Like, we've seen J.J. Watt go in I think he was 11th overall or something like that. I mean, there's players all over the place. So I just would love to get that blue chipper at the edge. So, all right, let's see what else everybody says. Kyle Hamilton at 4. Devin Lloyd at 10, Kennard at 35, and one of the edges, or Kyler Gordon at 38. So he's pretty defensive heavy there. Interesting. Thank you very much, Burnt Dice, for submitting that. NY Jet says, I believe Douglas will love Ekwonu. Excuse me. I think he will. I think that I saw a clip of him. He like blocked some dude, pancaked somebody. And then, like, there was, like, a play, like, where the receiver or the running back had gotten past that line. And Ekwonu just completely bashes somebody out of the picture of the frame. Like, it was just 2 pancakes. It was 2 pancakes in one clip. It was pretty impressive. So, all right, we got Straight 100 Jets joining us. He says, what's going on, fellas? I think the talent around 4 pick is higher on D. I think that's probably a good comment to make, that the top-end talent is defensive in this draft. I want to get one of the 2 elite pass rushers at number 10. I want to go wide receiver at 10. Do you prefer Garrett Wilson or Treylon Burks? We have a couple of segments talking about wide receiver tonight. I don't think any of them are geared towards the draft. James, you can go again. I'm happy to talk on this one. Who do you prefer right now?
Yeah, so between Garrett Wilson and Treylon Burks, I mean, for the Jets and obviously every team, it's a matter of preference. You know, what is it that you're looking for, right? Garrett Wilson's the 5'10", 5'11" route runner, right? Do the Jets feel like, is he too similar to an Elijah Moore, who Elijah Moore is smaller than him, but they have that same type of that same type of build in a sense, and they're going to be those savvy route runners. Obviously, with Garrett Wilson, he gets a lot of separation as well. Great hands, so very talented. But are they going to look at Treylon Burks, the Jets, and say, is he our Deebo Samuel, right? 6'2", 6'3", 225. The speed, and they do a lot of different things with him at Arkansas. They did. He was in the slot. Those motions, those end arounds, those jet sweeps. They ran that all with him. Those wide receiver quick screens, getting the ball out of Zach's hands quick. He has the yards after catch ability. So I do like Treylon Burks a lot. And I do think he might be able to fit what the Jets are looking for. Maybe if we didn't have Elijah Moore, that answer changes. But I would lean Treylon Burks for right now, but no disrespect to the talent of Garrett Wilson.
I don't think there's any problem with that. There are a lot of people that really, really are high on Treylon Burks. Mike, do you have a preference? James cut it up pretty good there with like how they. The proto, like their archetype, I guess, if you will, the type of receiver that they are. He kind of broke that down. But do you have a preference? Do you want that big-bodied guy? Do you want that guy who can route run?
No, because I think there's a place for both archetypes of receiver for the Jets right now, and we've seen that play out just with the talent that we have. Between Crowder versus Davis. Like we could use talent in multiple areas, and I think the Jets will be very open. I think it'll just come down to who can we get, where are they, what does it cost, and Joe Douglas is really good at that.
Good answer. I will also throw out that even people who are really high on Treylon Burks, I don't think they would be like on draft night. Like if they took Garrett Wilson, they wouldn't be like beside themselves angry. They're both really talented. I think they're both worthy of a first round pick. So I think. It's kind of like splitting hairs a little bit. They're both really good. What did you want to say?
I mean, I was going to say, like, do we feel like Zach has shown his cards in terms of what his preferred archetype type of receiver is? I mean, at times we've seen him. I mean, I think if you take a look at the season, which isn't a good season to base off of, it's his first season in with a whole new environment. But you'd probably say he's mostly gravitating towards route runners, I would guess. So that would be my perception of it. I mean, Corey Davis's drops kind of mess with those stats a little bit, but I don't know. You got to ask what works with Zach. I mean, that's a real question you got to ask yourself.
Well, hopefully both. I hope he could throw to both.
Yeah, right.
But you're right, though. I think it's interesting to think about that. Like, what does Zach really like in a wide receiver? That's a fair point to make. Okay, beautiful. Vern, he says, everyone's talking about edge, and he's wondering about the secondary. I put a video out about pass rush and why the secondary why the edge position and the defensive line position trumps that. I would love for you to check that out, obviously. But I think that both are needed. I think it's fair to say that secondary is still a big need on this defense. I just prioritize the edge and the pass rush in general. All right, let's keep it moving. We've only done like one mailbag, so we'll go faster, but we'll take our time too at the same time. All right, so this is from Grant Root. He says, do you think Denver, he says they're 9th overall with 2 second-round picks and 2 third-round picks. And then Atlanta has the 8th overall pick with also 2 second-rounders and some wide receiver guy, which he is talking about Calvin Ridley, of course. He says, do you think any one of those teams could be looking up for a quarterback, looking to trade up? And could the Jets be that team to be the trade partner? He says, why or why not? We'll go to you, Mike, first. What do you think? Would either one of those scenarios be intriguing, and do you think the Jets would be interested in a move back from 4?
I'm with you. I'm not held to any particular position in draft. I think it just comes down to what makes sense, and then obviously the draft board, and particularly how that relates to the Jets organization and what's in their war room. I think that it's just got to make sense. I think that's what it comes down to, and again, we put our faith in Jody and the front office in terms of being able to make that right decision. I don't think the Jets would. They're not they're not so much Scrooge McDucks, although sometimes it looks like that, to where they would trade down just for the sake of getting more picks. If the talent is there that the organization and the team needs, whether it's an edge, whether it's an O-line, I don't think they're going to pass on a particular talent position that they need. But I think they're going to keep their lines open, so to speak, for any team that's looking to make a deal. I think though the Jets, I think that line will really be open depending on what happens with the first 2 picks. I really think, especially that first pick. I think James might have said that. Depending on how that first pick goes, which presumably we know, but depending on how that first pick goes, if there's any surprise there, you really see the Jets kind of open their telephone lines to all kinds of offers at that point. But Thibodeau's there, and they trade down still. Now that's an interesting discussion. That would be, I would be interested to know what your guys' take on that. Like, did the Jets office feel that Thibodeau's overreaching for the 4th pick? I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying, if they still trade down, I mean, obviously we're going to be pretty upset about that, but it's just something to think about.
I would be very upset if they traded back with Thibodeau on the board. I think we all know that. James, either one of those options attractive to you in a trade back from 4? We'll try to remove the scenarios of Thibodeau being there. Would you be open to that? And I think the answer is pretty clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Phone lines are open. I don't want to trade. I think we talked about this last week with not trading before you're on the clock, just in case someone is available, and you don't want to trade back. But telephone lines are completely open for anybody that wants to, make an offer to trade up. I'm game.
The one thing I will say as a devil's advocate, you can't typically load up and have too many draft picks, but the cupboard is so full already with 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, all picking in the top 69. It's not an issue because you always want those day 2, day 1 picks, but if we end up with so many, I don't even know, well, I shouldn't say that actually. You know what? I retract that whole statement. Get all the day 1 and all the day 2 picks. My only concern is if we have like 12 draft picks on draft night, it could be a little bit of a problem just because then you're having to make roster space for all of those, but I don't know if that's really an issue. So,
well, I'll take your answer and I'll modify it, which is, John or James, you probably know, but I believe our 23 draft is much more bare in the cupboard in terms of picks, in which case it is kind of scary in the sense of, I'm not saying that our picks from last year's draft were wrong, but I'm just saying, if we're too gluttonous and trying to pick everything now in this draft and not try to somewhat position ourselves to have somewhat of some opportunities next year just to see how this team matures over a second season. I mean, it does scare me not to have as much of a robust set of draft picks for next year. So I wouldn't be opposed if the opportunity is right and we were able to get some second or third round picks for 23's draft. I think that's a smart move to think about, considering that our team is still maturing. We really don't know how these players are really going to come out on the other side, particularly the ones we drafted last year.
That's a fair point. Maybe the trade back is for just future assets, which I think is a smart move and definitely worth considering. All right, we'll move forward here. That was a good mailbag. Thank you, Grant Rude. Let's go ahead and talk about something that maybe you're not prepared for, guys. This is from Straight 100, and he says, OBJ is having a resurgence with the Los Angeles Rams. I know he's not going to be the player he was for the Giants due to past injuries. He can be temperamental, but if he continues to play well and especially wins a Super Bowl, he could be a valuable asset to a younger team and younger receivers. He says, if he keeps this up for the Rams, would you like to see Joe Douglas bring him in? It's interesting comment. Interesting question, I think. What are your thoughts? I'm not laughing at it. I actually do think it's interesting. I'm not sure if I would do it, but I don't think it's crazy. Maybe it is. I don't know. It could be. Mike, what do you think? Crazy, or interesting idea?
I'm not saying it's crazy. I'm not interested. It's just me. I'd rather pull people's attention to the topic on who's up there in free agency for wide receiver. Yeah. Does our team need as many kind of mentors or player coaches as much as we can? Yeah, but I just don't think OBJ would be at the top of my list. I mean, he's going through his own, coming through a lot of crap, coming from Cleveland and trying to find his place. I don't necessarily think he's been sitting in that position for so long where I'd be like, oh, he's going to be able to contribute to the team as well as coach the team. I think he's still trying to find his sea legs, and good for him. I mean, it looked pretty bleak, during his days with Cleveland and with Baker. So I'm really happy for him, and I'm really happy for Stafford to have a resource to go to, given where Stafford came from. But Jets, I don't think it would be wise for us to use our resources on a player who we're not exactly sure whether it would be the same return on investment. Let's just say that. That's the best way I can say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea. I think it's more interesting than crazy, only because of the talent. I do still think it's there. Obviously, those years with the Giants were those were Hall of Fame level years if those continued on for a longer period of time. I think Vern made the comment that he doesn't want him anywhere near Elijah Moore. I think they have a good relationship. And that's kind of one of the points that I was going to bring up. So it was a little bit different than what Vern said. I think OBJ and Elijah Moore have a pre-existing friendship relationship type of deal where, if you remember, prior to the start of this year, OBJ was asked about Elijah Moore, and OBJ said he thought that Elijah Moore could be an all-pro as a rookie. So there's some kind of connection there. Maybe he would enjoy playing together. I know the detriment that people think he brings to a locker room, which we're not in the locker room. We don't really know. It's just what we hear media-wise. And I guess what we maybe see on the field and stuff like that, the whole kicking net thing that went on in New York. But I think it's more interesting than crazy, because I do just think he's kind of clicking a little bit with the Rams, and it just didn't work out in Cleveland. So why would we just completely trash an option to the curb when we're in no position to do that at any position on the football field?
Yep. Huge need. I think it's it's similar to last offseason. It's a little bit of like one of those positions that is not being talked about a lot. I mean, I know it is because people are talking about, Traylon Burks and Garrett Wilson, but there's even a need beyond just drafting one of those guys. I think we do need to potentially consider getting a veteran, through trade or free agency. I'm not going to say no to OBJ. I don't know if I'm comfortable saying yes definitively, but it's not crazy talk, I don't think, by any means. There are a lot of people saying he's not a Joe Douglas guy. I don't know. Maybe he isn't. We know he didn't jive with Jamal Adams, but I don't know if Jamal Adams is OBJ or OBJ is Jamal Adams. So it's interesting to discuss that stuff for sure. All right, let's move on to our next one. And we've got tight ends. This is from Brandon D. McAuley. And he says, so here's a question for you. Do you think JD would use one of his second rounders on a tight end if he signs Dalton Schultz? This tight end would ultimately be a backup. Who went first last time? I can't even remember.
I did.
Okay, so you're going second. James, you're up.
Very quick answer is yes. If they sign Dalton Schultz, I do very firmly believe that they will still use a second-round pick on a tight end if their guy is available, specifically a guy like Trey McBride, because we don't have any tight ends. That's the problem, and he necessarily wouldn't be a backup tight end. I think there were a lot of situations this year where the Jets wanted to play two tight ends on the field and simply figured out they couldn't do that. They didn't have two tight ends that they were able to put on the field. So I think that's what Mike LaFleur wants to do. I think JD, or I'm hoping so, I guess, kind of realizes that his one big misstep with getting the players the scheme needed last year was that he lacked aggressiveness at the tight end spot. However that was going to happen, he just totally ignored it, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I think he learns from that, and they get together in their meetings, and LaFleur, Saleh say, listen, dude, you got to get us, you got to bulk up this tight end room. And if we sign Dalton Schultz, we don't stop there. So I think the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, Mike, how you feeling about that one? I'm pretty much in line with you guys, I think.
I am. I mean, my girl's gonna kill me. Shout out to her, but I rather than Schultz, I wish it was Dallas Goedert. I know he's coming up for free agent. There's no chance we get him, but hey,
he resigned. I think.
Did he already resign?
Yeah, they just gave him a deal pretty recently, I think. Yeah.
Oh, good for him. Carolina will be very happy. No, I'm with you. I think they know. James hit it right in the head. I was going to say the same thing. I think there's so many times they wanted to play twin tight end sets, just didn't have the talent or the ability to do so, and it really handicaps what they can do with Zach and what his options are. I don't see Jody making that mistake again. I'd be shocked if he does. Whether it's a second, I don't know if it's necessarily a second, but there's no way we get through the first three rounds without a tight end on the draft board. I'll say that.
Yeah, almost just go real short here. I'll go real quick. We have to go heavy. We have to go aggressive on tight end. There's no way we can roll into next season by just making one addition to that room. And that's, Dalton Schultz, great. That would be nice. Drafting one early, whether that's, Trey McBride, the Weidemeyer guy, Jalen Weidemeyer from Texas A&M. There's a bunch of guys, though, and we have to double dip, I think. Really, I think we do. And so The answer to the question is no, it would not stop me. And yes, I would consider spending a second-round pick on the tight end position because I do think that it was a detriment to Zach last year to not have anybody at that position. Before we move on, we've got Burnt Dice here with a pretty hot take here. He says that Schultz is so overrated. 10.4 yards per catch, I believe, is career average, or maybe his last year's average. He says most good tight ends have about a 12-yard per catch rate. He says David Njoku is 13.5 yards per catch. I'll just let James respond to that one. I'm not going to respond. Mike's not going to respond. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you have to look at the total body of work. When it comes to the tight end position. I mean, I'm not going to act like I know if David Njoku could block or not, because I don't. But he comes off to me as more of that receiver build, right? So if Dalton Schultz has 2 less yards per catch, if he can block in the running game, that makes up for that 2 yards and more. I don't think we're looking for someone. We're not going to find Travis Kelce in free agency, or maybe we find him in the draft, but most likely not. But it's a spot where you need to be able to do multiple things, and I don't think it's one where you can cherry pick a stat and say he's lower in this one than everyone else, and it makes him overrated. I think total body of work for him speaks for itself.
Okay, we have another comment from Kev Chatta. Thank you for joining us. By the way, we have a ton of people in here, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to hit that like button. That would really mean a lot to us. If you're new to the channel, we'd love you to subscribe. Check out the channel. We have lots of content on there. He says Schultz stats are somewhat inflated because of the wide receivers on the team. I think that's what he's saying here. Basically, you've got Amari Cooper, you've got Michael Gallup, you have CeeDee Lamb. I was going to throw out that maybe, the yards that Schultz put up and the yards per catch that he put up, also based on how they use him in the offense and the routes that they're asking him to run. They have those wide receivers, and so I would think that they're going downfield to them a little bit more often in that offense. Whereas you think of an offense like, maybe this isn't a great example, but George Kittle, years past, he was like the primary weapon on that offense before Deebo Samuel decided to be superhuman.
Exactly.
So they use him a little bit more as like a primary weapon. Even places like Baltimore with Mark Andrews, yeah, they use him as probably if he's not their number 1 wide receiver or number 1 target, he's definitely their number 2 target. And there's just a bunch of examples. These guys all have different roles. Njoku on his team, I think it's fair to say that he is the field stretching tight end in that offense. They brought in the guy from Atlanta, Austin Hooper, who's more of like that Schultz. He's the guy who can do everything. He can block, he can receive as well. Not necessarily a field stretcher. I'm on the Schultz bandwagon. He's one of my top ads this offseason, and we are going to discuss free agency in a little bit, so I won't spoil all of it. Good stuff for everybody. Everybody's on point tonight. We got the chat on point. We got James and Mike on point. Not really comfortable with Mike being on point, but we'll deal with it.
It won't last for long.
Yeah. All right, we got McGovern conversation here. So this is from DMan85 on the YouTube comments. He says, what are the chances that McGovern remains our center? Great question. Mike, you're first. Do you think did the Jets retain him? He's still got 1 year left. What do you think is going to happen?
I think the Jets are not going to. I don't think anything's guaranteed right now. So I wouldn't say. And I was really hard on McGovern, and then he had his good games and he had his bad games. I just think that the Jets aren't going to keep any option off the table. Everything is on the table.
You're good. I'm just reading his comment.
I was looking at the comment as you were moving it. But I think they're going to be looking at everything. I don't think anyone is necessarily, not for the sense that they're trying to replace people. I just think the Jets are looking for, what if McGovern goes down? Do we have someone who can rotate in there? What does that position look like? where are we heading as a team? What does Zach need? I would say if the right opportunity is there, I'm not opposed to it. And I know there's some big Connor McGovern fans out there, and there's some who probably feel that he had a bad season. And I just think he'll definitely be there for camp. When he retains the starting role, I think the Jets will look at what options are out there, and I don't necessarily oppose that. I mean, we got to put the best team that we can out there. And Zach got beat up this year. That is a true fact. He got pretty beat up on his first rookie year, and the Jets are going to do everything possible to stop that from happening in a second year in a row.
Fair enough, James. McGovern, you keeping him? You cutting him? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm keeping McGovern. I think the center spot is that anchor spot on the offensive line. At some point, I think he played well enough to keep him, right? Well enough to where we can keep him, and also to the point where we could have some continuity going into this 2022 season on that offensive line. At some point, you just can't keep cutting guys because you're going to get money in a free agency that you're not guaranteed to get anybody. If you cut McGovern, what if Joe Tooney happens and the guy that you want just got offered the house by a team that's going to be a perennial Super Bowl contender for, as long as Mahomes is there? Like, you're not guaranteed to get anybody, so I don't think you have the right to just go ahead and cut them because they're going to save you. I don't know how much money he saves us, but X amount of money. I think it's a relatively large number, but I had the same opinion with Jamison Crowder this year. Now, Jamison Crowder was hurt, but just to cut guys just for more money, you can listen. If you wind up saying, okay, we're going to keep them, we'll, and we sign somebody in free agency that we think can be our big money center, or we draft someone we think we could be the future at center. It's probably not fair to Connor McGovern, but nothing's fair in this business of the NFL to where if you need to open up space, you can either trade him or you can let him go and he becomes a free agent. So I wouldn't cut bait really at all, but I definitely wouldn't cut bait before we're guaranteed or know who our successor at that spot is going to wind up being.
Yeah, I think it's an unnecessary risk. I like what Gitmo Bob says here, and I pretty much agree with all of this. He says McGovern will be the Jets center, and I hope they draft a center to develop him. I think that's what I want. People are really, really on the Linderbaum, and we're actually going to talk about him. He is in the mailbag. So everybody's really, really high on doing that. They say draft Linderbaum, move McGovern to right guard, which is a fine idea. That's not a terrible idea. But I would rather us get in, or our Joe Douglas and this regime, to get in the habit of drafting players to not start immediately. It would be nice to develop them, to have that farm system of offensive linemen waiting in the wings, developing, not playing as rookies. Of course, Linderbaum can play year one. I don't think that's a question. I would just rather wait, and I would like to keep McGovern. I think he was, like people say, analytically, pretty good center last year. Top half for sure. And continuity matters for sure. They're going to be adding a guard. I think that's going to happen. So I don't like the idea of having 2/3 of the interior being replaced in the same offseason. We really do need to try to keep some level of continuity, like you guys said. So perfect. We will move on. We're almost done with the mailbag, and then we'll get into the actual topics tonight. All right, Linderbaum, number 1. If we miss out on Kayvon and... I'm sorry, we're not going to do that first part. He's asking about Tyler Linderbaum at 10. And that's the focus. I'm going to ignore the rest of your question, D-Man85. I hope you don't hurt. Hope your feelings aren't hurt. I want to get to that part of it. Where do you guys stand on drafting a center at number 10 overall? And this is for James and for Mike, but it's also for our for our chat. I want to know, man. I feel like next week I'm probably going to make that our poll. Would you draft Tyler Linderbaum with a top 10 pick? What do you think, man? Let's go to Mike first. Would you draft a center at 10?
No.
And not a center. I apologize. Linderbaum specifically.
Okay. All I mean, Linderbaum is an amazing talent prospect. I mean, you know, you'd be crazy not to factor him into a draft scenario, given what we saw from the line. Again, not taking away from the line's growth and maturity as they went through the season, but you know, we're not exactly sure what the fate of Moses is, and we don't know the dependability on other sides of the other sides of the line, and whether that's Becton or in terms of who's rotating in for Feeney, and we got Van Rotten still on the roster until we get probably closer to camp starting, and then they're probably going to cut his ass. But I'm sticking by my comment, which is I still think that the Jets could use an infusement of young talent on that line through the draft. I still think that if that's Linderbaum, that's Linderbaum. If that's someone else, that's someone else. I'm not necessarily holding myself to one particular name. I still think that line needs another investment for the long-term growth of the team, as well as the long-term growth of Zach. And if Linderbaum is there and there's not any other talent that makes sense, I think it's worthy of a serious conversation at that point. I don't think it should be a center. I think Connor McGovern, to James's point, provides enough return on investment to look at other holes or other gaps. But I think my personal opinion is this line needs some additional investment from the organization, and if that's Linderbaum, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
All right, James, where do you stand? You spending a top 10 pick on Tyler Linderbaum? I think it's Linderbaum. Is it Linderbaum?
I think it's Linderbaum.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I think so. Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
I'm not. Right now, as we stand today, I'm just not. And I do want the emphasis on offensive line, building this offensive line. We went back in 2020 with the 11th pick. 2021, we traded up those we gave away those 2 third-rounders to get Elijah Vera-Tucker. Both great picks, right? Both great picks. I just don't know if 3 years in a row you're going to take that and then turn it now into a center. And it's nothing against the position at all. If he, we've had the same argument with Elijah Vera-Tucker for everyone that made fun of us that, we traded up for him. We traded up for a guard, positional value, et cetera, et cetera. Our response was, well, listen, he's got all-pro potential, and he's going to stay on that side of the line for the next decade probably. So you can make the same argument for Tyler. I just think context matters in terms of what we just did and what we're looking for. And maybe what I'm looking for is different than what Joe Douglas is looking for, is someone else is looking for. But I just think you have to spread the wealth around this roster at some point with those premium picks in the first round. And I think this is the year to do that.
Yeah, you and me really do see it the same way. I don't feel comfortable investing the third first round pick in 3 years in a row. And I'm not very comfortable, honestly. And I know people who are pro Linderbaum really get upset when you say I'm not taking a center in the top 10. Listen, man, I'm gonna put another mailbag up here just to show you how freaking rare that is. Center has never gone in the top 10, and only 8 have gone in round 1 the last 20 years. That's rare. That is a trend. And it's not just a trend with one team. It's a trend across the entire National Football League. And again, I think I want to make this very, very clear. We all want a Nick Mangold. We all want a Kevin Mawai. There's nobody who's saying no thanks to that. Like, Hall of Fame level center, very, very valuable. But that position doesn't go in the top 10. It's not something you see. And can trends be bucked? Yes, they can. They can change. I don't know if I'm ready to do that after having done it, drafting offensive line 2 years prior. So no thanks on Linderbaum at 10. That's from yours truly. It sounds like James's as well. Mike, you sound like you might be okay with it, but you'd prefer it to be a different position on the offensive line. I think that's perfectly fair. All right.
Exactly.
We're gonna do this pretty quickly. Mike, before the stream started I don't know, what do you want to call it? Weeping for the Buffalo Bills. Is that what we
Yeah.
saw you doing?
I'm not gonna hide behind it. I feel bad for that organization right now.
Shut up. Just shut up.
I
So
feel bad.
I got a couple of mailbags here, and these are actually just comments that I stole off the internet, basically. So this is from a Twitter gentleman, and he says, Jets fan here. I actually felt bad for Bills fans yesterday. They are a really good team, deserved to win that game. OT rules are what ruined that game, plus I'm a bit sick of the Chiefs always being in it. We're not done. I've got more for you. And by the way, comment away, because I want to hear what everybody thinks on this. To some, sure, and I'm not necessarily a Bills enjoyer, but they were so bad for so long, and they did it right, and now are a contender every season for the foreseeable future. It's cool to see, even if they are in our division. What?
I get it, man.
I just like Josh Allen, and I want him to succeed. Such a great dude.
Awesome, dude.
No.
Quite handsome.
No. I'm going to read some of these comments about Linderbaum before we dive deeply into that bullshit stream. Joe Campione, he says 1,000% a waste of a pick on a center. McGovern was a top 10 center, and he is the offensive veteran / leader. Let's see here. Doesn't look like too many people actually want a center, actually. So Burnt Dice says hard no to Linderbaum in the top 20. He says centers rarely move the needle in terms of O-line play. Most starting centers are drafted round 3+. And actually, I thought of another thing about no to Linderbaum. He offers no versatility, no position versatility at all. He is only a center. He will never be a guard. He will never, I mean, not that we need him to be, but he will never be a tackle. So this is not a guy that you could move to guard if an injury happens. He's only ever going to be a center. He plays at like 295 pounds or something like that. No thanks. That's another issue. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people who are loving Linderbaum, they're just kind of ignoring that fact. Joe Douglas values that. He values people that can move. And although Becton can't play guard, he could play right tackle. He can play left tackle. Mm-hmm. Elijah Vera Tucker, he played left tackle in college. He can play guard in the NFL. It's no doubt. So position flexibility, Linderbaum has 0. He is only a center in the National Football League. Mike, I already know how you feel on this one. I guess I'll let you go first. I want people to hear whatever BS you're about to spin for us. You feel bad for the Buffalo Bills. I want you to tell me why it's okay to do that, because I think it's ridiculous.
Why it's okay to feel bad for them?
Yeah, you feel bad for them. What the hell is that all about?
Let's just not forget, that at some point in the future, we hope we cross every finger, every toe, every strand of hair, that one day we are back in the deep playoffs, fighting for a chance at the AFC Championship or a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And, I mean, some people will say, why was the choice to kick deep? Why didn't they squib it? Why weren't the Bills playing the sidelines? Where were the linebackers and covering midfield? I still think at the end of the day that the overtime rules, and they were revamped to try to make it fair. I still don't think that they necessarily are where they need to be. I think that if Josh Allen would have won that, if the Bills would have won that toss, I think you would have a different result right now based on the way both of those quarterbacks were playing, particularly Josh Allen. And to see where that organization came from the Kelly days, going to 4 years in a row to the championship game or to the Super Bowl. I can't remember. What is that stat? Did they go 4 years in a row to the Super Bowl? I think something like that.
Yeah, they went 4 years.
I just think that for them to get that close, not to say they won't be back there next year, but for them to get that close and to fight as hard as they did, I think it's a bummer, because I partly see some of the Jets in that history, to be honest with you. I mean, we fought our way back to 2 AFC championships in a row, and we didn't lose it due to overtime rules. We lost it on our own regard. We did a great job at that. But it's just it's unfortunate to see a team that was playing so hot at the end of that game and was ready to take that win and go on to the AFC Championship game to be stopped by a coin toss. Yeah, that's a bummer to me. That's a real bummer.
Who cares? F them. F the Bills. Would they feel sorry for us? Would Bills fans be weeping for us? I don't think so.
Probably not.
It's not about that.
I hear what you're saying.
You don't need to get paid back. You don't need to get paid back.
I know that I'm busting your balls. I think that you do make some fair points about the overtime rules. I don't see it the same way though. James, let me hear on you. What are you thinking about these these Jets fans who feel bad for Bills fans?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird because I found myself at points like kind of being like, I guess I'd be okay if the Bills won, Like, I feel like in my mind, I was like, we're so far away that, like, I don't know, whatever happens this year, we'll get there eventually. But, right now we're just so far out of it. Whatever happens, happens. And then when they scored that touchdown with 13 seconds left, I was like, I kind of said to myself, I was like, damn, are the Bills going to win the Super Bowl? Like, this might suck if the Bills win the Super Bowl. Like, so I got kind of nervous there for a second. And then I found myself at the end of the game being like, all right, the Bills are really good, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl, so I feel a lot better. But I don't know if I have a different view on overtime than everybody else, but I like the way it is. So if that's a hot take, then that's a hot take, I guess. I think circumstance matters, right? In that particular game, whoever won the coin toss most likely was going to win the game because of how the game was going. But we don't always see that, right? I mean, the famous Matt Castle calls the coin toss in Seattle, in Green Bay when he played for Seattle, and it was heads, and he said, it's heads and we're going to go down and score. And
Matt Hasselbeck.
Hasselbeck. Who did I say?
Castle.
Oh, Matt Castle, sorry. Matt Hasselbeck, he says, it's heads, we want the ball, and we're going to score. And he threw a pick six, and the Packers won the game. Because football, like we've learned this weekend, we might have saw that it's all offense in the Kansas City-Buffalo game, but the Packers 49ers told us that you can win a game on special teams. Maybe the Titans didn't really show us, but they had 9 sacks. Normally that wins you a football game. So you go into overtime as the Buffalo Bills, as the Kansas City Chiefs, not the Buffalo Bills offense, not the Kansas City Chiefs offense. You have a chance. I don't want to make it seem like all you have to do. It's a lot harder said than done. But if you hold them to a field goal, you get the ball. So it's part of a team part of your team is to be able to play defense. And if you can't, you lose. And if you can, you give your chance. You give your team another chance. So I just think some of the proposals out there might be too waning on player safety if they were to go another quarter. Like, when does it end at certain points? And so for that particular game, yeah, maybe we wanted to see more, but it doesn't always work out that way either.
It was easily the game of the year. There's no question about it. That game was unbelievable. It was a quarterback duel, playoff quarterback duel of the ages. It was fantastic to watch. No matter how much I hate the Bills, seeing great quarterback play, seeing great football game, you can respect the effort, obviously, that the Bills gave. I have a couple of things. So I have a better example for you in the playoffs, and I don't know if it was the wild card or the divisional round. Packers Cardinals, and it was a high flying scoring game. Tons of points scored. And the Packers got the ball in overtime, and I believe it was after like some ridiculous like Hail Mary throw from Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals, on like the first play, I think it was, and it was either the first play or the second play, it was very, very quickly in overtime. They hit Rodgers, they caught an interception, went for a touchdown, game over. So I think it's fair to say, like, yeah, it was a high-scoring game. Could the Bills have scored if they had gotten the ball first? Yes. But opportunity has to be – you have to make your opportunity, even if it's not the best opportunity. Okay. A couple of comments. Vern says, Allen is very fun to watch. Hard not to root for him in that game. Amazing showcase. I think it's everybody respects what he did. I don't think there's anybody that you can't watch what he did and be like, oh, he sucks.
There was a pretty I don't know if you guys got it in the coverage. There was when he scored that last touchdown. They show him on the bench and he's like screaming at his line or at his defense. He's going, "Let's go, let's go!" I actually DVR'd it because they got me amped up. So I was like, "Yeah, let's go, baby."
Yeah. Again, I talked to my family about it. 13 seconds. I cannot believe they got into field goal range. It's out of my mind. It boggles the mind. It's incredible.
It's crazy.
All right. We have a bunch of people in here, and we're sitting at, like, not enough likes. Hit that like button for us, guys. We'd really appreciate that. We've got a new person in the chat. He says, this is Tyson's Kangaroo. He says, the Jets should get a tight end in the free agent market and in the draft. I would pay Gesicki. And he says, a Conwo in the 5th round. I don't know of that name. I'll have to look that up. I do appreciate you commenting. So thank you for tuning in for the show, man. Really do appreciate that. I'm going to actually write that name down right now. All right. Let's go to our first topic of the night because the mailbag took an hour. Thank you to everybody that submitted a mailbag. If you guys are not submitting mailbags, follow me at NYJ Today on Twitter. You can submit those when I drop the mailbags each week, and we will include your questions, your hot takes into the show as best we can. We did a good job this week of doing that. Last week was a little bit harder, but we will squeeze those in when we can. And just thank you very much for submitting them. All right, let's go to the first one. Chiefs versus Bills, and we kind of talked about it a little bit. Does the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a very, very good offense, Jesus God, Mike, get your stuff together. What is going on?
I had to plug in my phone.
Is the fact that they were able to just go up and down the field on the number one defense in the NFL, does that give you any pause at all for addressing the defense? Does it give you any pause on getting weapons for Zach? Like, what are your thoughts in regards to the game and just the fact that they ripped apart the number one defense? You can go, James, because I'm pretty sure Mike just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, where'd he go? Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it honestly, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change how I would approach the offseason roster construction. And the answer is whatever we watched on Sunday night is just not, or I don't want to say not, but it's going to be very difficult, right, to try to like replicate, right, what we saw. Like if your goal is to say, okay, I'm going to try to find Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and that's going to be my offense. You're going to be waiting probably a very, very long time. And really kind of same with Josh Allen, right? I mean, Gabriel Davis had a huge game. I don't think that should all of a sudden change your draft philosophy if you really like wide receivers to say, screw it, we'll just wait till the 4th round to get someone. Like, I think it takes it, you have to know your own scheme, your own system. And that's why I was I was really happy we went with that wide zone Shanahan type of scheme, is because I thought we had the ability to duplicate it, because it is a very, I don't want to say scheme friendly, but it's very adaptable to what what you want to do in the run game, the pass game, the play action. And we drafted Zach to maybe take it one step higher than the step higher than Jimmy Garoppolo may take the 49ers, right? Play defense, run the ball, use the play action game. But whatever we saw Sunday from the Chiefs and the Bills, if you're like, hey, I want my team to look like that, I don't know if it's going to be something that you can do unless Josh Allen magically appears on this earth again within the next 10 years, which I don't think is something that's going to happen. I didn't see it as something that should shape how you wanted to go after this season. If you say I'm going to draft all the defensive players in the world, and you plan on matching up with Kansas City, it may not matter at all, but that doesn't mean we just have to leave the defense at what it is right now. So it doesn't, for me, change anything. I think the Jets have to go with what their coaches feel is best for this scheme, where they feel the weakest at, where their biggest needs are, and then you deal with the competition come Sundays.
Yeah, I think all that's really well said. And also, don't forget, the Jets played Allen at the end of the season, and they didn't. It wasn't like the greatest quarterback performance of all time. We did okay against them. So it's not like that's not Josh Allen every single week. That's not Patrick Mahomes every single week. They are human. So building a good defense, I think, is still important. Do we need to maybe emphasize getting playmakers as what we saw? I think that's the thing that I take away the most. Get guys who can make plays, because Allen did some things that we don't see a whole lot of quarterbacks do, if any. Mahomes and Allen are really, they're in their own breed, I think, right now. Maybe Herbert's in that conversation too. But Gabriel Davis, not just the numbers that he put up, but that route that he did on that guy made him fall. Literally just put him on his ass just by running a route. Playmakers make plays, and that made Josh Allen's life real easy on that play. It was not a spectacular touchdown throw. The guy got wide freaking open. So I think that's my takeaway. Get some big weapons. Mike, what do you want to say about that game? Does it make you feel any differently moving into the offseason?
No, I think you both hit on it. And just to touch on James's point, there's 31 other teams other than the Chiefs, and you gotta be ready to play any team, not just the Chiefs. So you gotta stick to your game plan. Of course, to your point, you need our scouts, our general manager. They need to be able to find playmakers, both in the first round as well as in the other 6 rounds that precede it. So you got to stick to your game plan, and you got to find talent where you can at the draft picks you have. You don't just put all your eggs in one basket. You stick to improving the entire team, not just one component of the team. So I think you guys hit it perfectly.
Nicely done. All right, easy topic. We're going to another one. Again, a fairly straightforward, fairly easy one. I would love to hear what you guys have to say regarding this one. I'm going to go to some of the comments here from that game. I'm sorry, from that topic. Gitmo Bob says, "Is the Bills the number one defense because they played the Jets, Pats, and Fish twice?" Maybe. They were still really good though.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
They weren't good. They weren't good on Sunday, but they were a really good unit during the year. But statistically, certainly maybe that padded the stats a little bit. But even if maybe if they played some other teams, they probably still are in the top 5, top 10 for sure. Still a really good defensive unit for sure. And they have good that's the thing. They have really good secondary players, but maybe not enough pass rush, because there were some times where Mahomes was eluding and getting more time and just finding guys downfield. Rick Fisher, he says that Mahomes throws a wicked sidearm throw. The 13 seconds thing, that's synonymous with the 28-3 Falcons choke in the Super Bowl. There's to me, that's going to be the number that you just put on any Bills fan right now, is you just put 13 on the tweet or whatever however you're communicating with them, and then just leave it at that. All right. Let's go.
How do you not not squib kick, but how do you kick that ball out of bounds?
I don't know.
We're having an entirely different conversation if they do.
Not only that, if you listened to what the Chiefs players were saying, the way they played the first pass, which I think went to Kelsey. Kelsey went over to Mahomes and to Tyreek Hill, and he's like, look, they are playing sidelines. And which doesn't make any flipping sense because the Chiefs had timeouts and there were 13 seconds left. So they effed up everything in those last 13 seconds. They misplayed the special teams kick. They misplayed the two defensive plays by playing the sidelines rather than, just trying to man up and not let them burn them deep. Like, I don't know. We're not going to talk about it anymore, but they really butchered that. They butchered it bad. All right. Let's go ahead and let's go to Mike first. Are you a Zach Wilson believer? You can give me a scale of 1 to 5, whatever you want to do, 1 to 10.
I'll do it in reverse.
That was legendary. It was legendary. That was last week. If you guys missed that one, Mike gave me he gave me a run for my money for no apparent reason. What do you think, Mike? What's your belief in Zach level? And you can say 5 is he's a bona fide future Hall of Famer. 1, he's going to be a bust. Or if you want to do 1 to 10, you can, range that out a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll go on a 10 scale just because that's how I was prepping and my own thoughts about it. And I'm still sitting at a solid 7. I would say, I'd say be in certain parts of the season it was higher, and in certain parts of the season it was lower. I just try to look at the entire season as one kind of and one all kind of encompassing thought, and I'm still optimistic. I think there was enough there, and especially when you compare him against others in this draft class. Obviously, Trevor is going to be the first on everyone's list that he'll always be baselined against, and I'm more confident with the stats from Zach than I am from Trevor. Of course, Trevor had the whole Urban Meyer crisis, so I'm guessing he'll hide behind that in regards to his interception tally and things like that. But I think there's a lot that we want to see more or improvements from Zach, but I think the foundation and his just God-given skill set is there. And I think he showcased that in certain aspects in certain games. And so with that, I think he has all my confidence going into the second season. It's just not sure. I don't know. I don't think anyone outside the locker room can say how much of it, some of those easy throws that we got frustrated with were due to rookie, jitters. How much of that was due to play calling? And it's just not clear right now. And for that, I give him a solid 7.
All right, you got the police after you too, buddy.
I know.
Oh my God, the lights was just on your face. I just saw.
I'm gonna have to go, guys. I'll see you on the
You gotta go.
The red was literally on his face. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Jeez. Okay, James, your belief level in Zach. I am going to clip that. That was so good. I can't believe the light was on your face. All right, James, what's your belief level right now in Zach?
7.9 out of 10, just under an 8 there. Listen, it was rough, right? It was rough in the beginning. I am a firm believer in him, but I'm also a firm believer in that beginning of the season was very, very uncharacteristic of who he can potentially be. And I think who he can potentially be is what we saw later on in the year. To me, he had zero confidence whatsoever. And that trickled down from his mechanics, his footwork, his mental processing. He was late on a lot of throws. His ball placement wound up being off. There was everything. It all trickled down from top all the way down to the bottom to his feet. And the game, you could tell, just started to slow down for him. And it's a fast game. So in the beginning, he looked like he was in a game that the speed was too much for him. And he responded by rushing everything to try to catch up to the speed. Later on in the year, the game was just as fast as it was earlier on for him, but you could see that he calmed down and he slowed himself down, but mentally he was still processing a lot faster at that same speed. He just slowed his body movements down. And it came along with some throws that we were hoping to see from the start, right? Those BYU throws that we watched for God knows how many months in the offseason. And so I think what we saw from Zach in that stretch of when he came back from his injury is much more indicative of what we're going to see from him as time goes on.
I'm sorry. That might have been a top five moment in any stream we've ever done. So I'm going to touch a little bit on what both of you said. So Mike, you said something about God-given talent. There aren't a lot of quarterbacks out there that can do things like Mahomes and like Mahomes and like Allen. And I think that Zach maybe never hits that ceiling, but he is awfully close to having the same amount of ability in making those types of throws. We had a couple people in the chat. Isaac Wright, 9 to 10. Jack Gaming 317, he says at 8.7. Straight 100, 7.5 out of 10. So we're all kind of floating around, that 7 to 8, 9 range. I will go ahead and I'll say an 8 still. And I wrote a few things down for this segment. So you mentioned it, James, the early part of the season, it was not what we saw from college, especially the interceptions. Like that part, I wasn't expecting him to go like when I was at that game, it was shocking to see just interception after interception after interception, because that really wasn't who he was. But he ended the year, the last five games of the season, 0 interceptions. And I think that's something that we shouldn't take lightly as a rookie on a really tough situation. The offensive line was brutal. The receiving weapons got really banged up by the end of the year. No Elijah Moore, no Corey Davis. We know what happened with Denzel Mims, basically just turned into a ghost. So the situation was brutal, and the fact that he was able to limit mistakes, I think really is something we should all be pointing to. I think that's one of my big predictions for next season is he's not going to turn the ball over a lot. I think he will limit interceptions quite well. The big question is can he limit interceptions and crank those touchdown numbers up? And I think that the thing I saw is a lot of people are pointing to that he had a lot of passes get stopped inside the 5-yard line last year. So it looked like it was pretty bad, the touchdown numbers passing wise. I think it's going to go up. My only question is how much does that go up? I think the interception total is going to stay pretty low. How high can he get the touchdown numbers up? But I still am a very big believer. I was never going to be out on Zach Wilson after his rookie year, so I don't know how much lower I would have been willing to go, even if it had been a rough, even a rougher season for him. After the injury, he remained healthy, no matter, the fact that he was getting hit a lot. I also say that as a leader, I believe in him. I think he's really, really smart. They talk about his mental processing, his mental horsepower. And I think if he works on short to mid accuracy and just working on fundamentals all off season, getting comfortable in the offense, comfortable with the weapons around him, I think that the sky and his potential is very, very high. So I'm saying a solid 8, and I'm very, very comfortable with that number for sure. Rick Fisher throws the name Berrios in there. We are going to talk about Berrios. He is one of the last segments of the night, actually.
And let's not forget that he also showed maturity with his perseverance through the New York media, with the whole White Lightning, with Mike White. That's, he had to go through a potential media mutiny in his first rookie season. And he came back and he actually had the strongest part of his season after that whole kind of little fiasco, I guess you could say. So, he showed a lot of maturity, and I think he grew a lot in that first season. I think in reflection, we'll say that those bumps were a big part of his overall growth, in terms of what he does in the future.
All right, good stuff. Rick Fisher says he matured mightily the last month of the season. I think anybody would agree. Gitmo Bob, he says it's really hard to handicap Z-Dubs because of all the injuries. Early on, he was a rookie. After watching him for the 4 weeks he was out, I think it really helped him. I think I agree with all of that, Gitmo, for sure. Kev Chatta, he says that Zach stays away from social media, outside drama. He can improve markedly. I think that's the thing. What kind of growth are we going to see from him from year 1 to year 2? I'm not giving any prognostications on that until I see what we do this offseason. Yeah. But if they are aggressive, like I think they're going to be this offseason, it could be a pretty good jump, I think. Let's see. Big Al. He says, anytime the Jets have ever been good over the past 30 years, they had a dominant center like Mawai and Mangold. This is true, but my only point I'll make to you is that those were good teams as well. It wasn't just you're right. That is a common denominator, but we also had a really good squad. You're thinking of the 09-10 Jets. I mean, loaded across the board. We were a loaded football team. Weapons, the offensive line was elite, of course. Defense was stout as hell, top 5 both years. You're thinking about Mawai, 98 Jets, 99 even, 2000 Jets, 2004 Jets. He was a part of some really good offensive line units, and just they were good players on those teams, Hall of Fame players even. Curtis Martin was a part of that group. So I just think that, don't forget that. You're right. Past 30 years, those two boys were dominant, Hall of Famers, and it is a common denominator, but it's not the only factor in why we were successful. Whew, I'm out of breath. If you guys have not hit that like button, please do it right now. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if anybody's new to the channel, really appreciate you, coming out, checking it out, and leaving comments. There are some new names for sure in there. It could be people, who just subscribed from the videos that I put out. I will let you know, as a short commercial break, there will be some more videos coming out this weekend, and I'll tease them real quick. I've got a free agent targets video that's going to come out. That's going to be coming out on Saturday. And then I have a Joe Douglas video as well, and it's basically all about how there's pressure. And I think that's maybe one of the topics we'll talk about next week. The real pressure that I think that is coming his way. And it's not critical to say it, I think, to say that. He has a very, very big offseason ahead of him. So, alrighty, let's move on. We're going to go to free agent targets. And I've got Grant Rude's his mailbag here. And he says, who are some of the key targets from the 2022 defensive end free agent pool that you feel the Jets should go after? I know it's a little bit small here, but he basically just throws the big list here of top edge rushers. So really, I think he's just asking us, who are some of those guys that we really like at the edge position? And lo and behold, that is our next topic, the free agent targets. Who wants to go first? I got my list, but I'm happy to listen. We can do edge rushers first if you don't mind, if anybody has any.
Hey, James.
I didn't put any edge rushers on my list, so I will let somebody else go.
Wait a minute. Let me play my Price is Wrong sound clip. Oh my God. Let's replace this guy. All right, I'm just teasing you. Mike, do you have any edge rushers on your list?
I have wide receivers and DBs, so you go ahead.
Woo, boy. Double. All right. Since neither one of you POSs has any edge rushers, I have a bunch. So here are some names, Grant Rude, and for the chat as well. These are guys that I think, maybe not all of them are realistic, but I think that these are guys that they should be pushing heavily to go get. I've made it very clear that edge is one of my top priorities this offseason. Chandler Jones, this is a guy who grew up in Rochester, New York, coming off of a 10.5 sack season, which he was coming off of an injury. So, he is getting older, but this is a sack production beast, a monster. Looks like Thomas Cahill wants to see that list again, which I can do for you. It's just a little bit small. Let's see here. That's something that Mike hears a lot. It's just a little bit small. I know. I'm a jerk. I know. I can't help it. I also have Jadeveon Clowney on my list. I think that a lot of people are turned off by him just because the production is so very fluctuating year to year. I personally would be willing to take a stab at Mr. Jadeveon Clowney just because, again, it's such a dire need. He is a presence on the edge. And ideally, he's not our top edge rusher. You know, like we still would have a Carl Lawson. We could still go get somebody in the draft. In that case, it might not be a Kayvon Thibodeau. So I would be open to that. Harold Landry is a guy that I've heard tossed around, and he plays outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. But they kind of do a hybrid thing in Tennessee. They run 4-3 and they run 3-4. I think he could I think he could play with his hand in the dirt. So I would be willing to, entertain him as well. Randy Gregory, I know he has the off-field stuff going on with him. I would be open to that move as well. He presents a lot of upside at the edge position. And then the last name that I wrote down that probably is the most realistic is probably Derek Barnett from the Eagles. This is a guy that Joe Douglas drafted. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, short answer, I think Derek Barnett might be a guy that they go after in free agency. I don't know if they're going to go and spend big bucks on edge because I think they might hope, fingers crossed, that somebody falls to 4, and if not, they will try to make a move for somebody in the draft. I'm just a little bit nervous with that risk. That's why I'm okay with spending a little bit more money on edge, even though we have Carl Lawson coming back. Just huge need, man. Defensively, I feel like that is one of the biggest needs. Alex Parisha says, I hate old players. Leave already. I'll only give you one argument. Only one. You're right. In general, we want young guys on this squad because we're still building. But you can't just have young players on your squad. No. And we can't just rely on the draft for building the roster. You have to fill it out, and you have to use free agency as a supplement. So I get it. You want the young ones, and I agree. In general, they are more attractive, but veterans aren't bad too. You can win with veterans. You can win with a mix of veterans and young players. That's my only argument, and for the most part, I do agree with you. We want the young guys. There's no doubt about it. Joe Campione, he says, Arden Key from the 49ers. Yeah, Arden Key is a name that I have heard for sure. Would be a very interesting choice for sure. I think he comes from San Fran. Did he say that? Yeah, 49ers. So maybe some familiarity there with what we want to do defensively. Rusty Spooner, he says, I think Sue would fit us perfectly, honestly, and I would love to have that maniac. He's never missed a game in his career. Boris Gidakov, new person on the channel. I haven't seen you before. Welcome. Good to have you. He says, take Agba, then draft Hamilton and Garrett Wilson. Yeah, Agba was a name that I mentioned in the video for edge rushers. He's not like a top choice for me personally, but I would be okay with them adding him as well. All right, good stuff. Neither one of you had edge rushers on your list, so let's go to Mike first. Who are some of your targets, and we'll make fun of you for them.
Well, I got a caveat, it's about whether they'll actually be there, whether they get re-signed or not. I mean, for me, it's, wide receiver and defensive back. I didn't put edge because I just knew we would probably take edge in the draft. So that's kind of my cop-out excuse for why I didn't focus on edge.
I just like to yell at you guys. That's all.
Particularly me, everyone knows on this channel I'm all about investing in the line. I think there's great reasons why not to blow a pick, whether that be one of the first rounds, whether that be even a second round. In which case, I'm totally open to satisfying that thirst in the free agency. And Brandon Scherf is still out there. It was a target that we looked at in the 21 offseason. He has his fair share of injury issues. I get that. I'm not hiding from that. I'm not oblivious to that. But he is a top prospect out there, and probably we could get him for a steal, knowing the ability that Joe Douglas has with his negotiations on contracts. So, I'm all about preserving draft picks for other areas, and Brandon Scherf definitely made my list. Marcus Williams, safety, it's definitely someone who I'm keeping an eye on as well. We don't know what the fate of Marcus May is. We could be in a really serious situation where our young, secondary could be really vulnerable. In which case, that either puts pressure on the draft or puts pressure on the free agency. And of course, and then you got J.C. Jackson, who I don't think will be out there. I think the Pats will re-sign him, but he is on the wish list. Nor would the Pats let him come to the Jets. I don't know if they can. They can't tag him. I didn't look that deep at it, but
They could tag him.
But I would say my number one prospect, switching gears, is on the wide receiver side. Chris Godwin is definitely a name that comes to the top of my list. I think the Jets could. I mean, of course, you could say, well, we got Corey Davis there, but if Chris Godwin goes out there and he's within reach, I think the Jets would be crazy not to consider that talent, especially since we were all just talking about the needs on wide receiver. It doesn't mean you can't still draft a wide receiver, but Keelan Cole's out there, Jamison Crowder's on the market. Mims, I guess you might as well already cut Mims because I feel like to your point, he is a ghost, and it seemed when he was on the field he almost regressed. He didn't even know where he was. So Chris Godwin is probably towards the top. I mean, I would like to say Devontae Adams, but he won't. I don't think we have any chance of grabbing him. So Chris Godwin's probably the best wide receiver. Could be the best wide receiver on the market besides Calvin Ridley. And then of course Darren Schultz.
Dalton.
As far as
Dalton.
Dalton. Sorry,
that's okay. It's a lot of names. We've talked a lot about a lot of people, so you're good.
Yeah, I think a tight end is necessity, especially if we're not going to, especially, and you guys know the talent pool in the draft better than I do, but I think we'd be crazy not to consider drafting a free agent tight end to course correct the gap that we have in that position as quickly as possible. So we know we need more than one tight end, and we'll probably get one through the draft, hopefully. I think a free agent who's ready to roll and to give Zach another target would be ideal. So secondary, wide receiver, and tight end make my list, and I think we need all three of those positions.
That was a very good list. There's a lot of chat, so guys, keep loading it up. I really appreciate it. I'm going to read all of your ideas for free agency as soon as James goes. If you have not hit the like button, would greatly appreciate it. We have a lot of people. It's so cool when I put out those videos and I see the comments, and then I recognize the people in the streams from the comments. This is one of those guys, Michael Elias. He says Godwin is hurt. We don't need players. We need hurt players. We have enough of those. I think that's a fair thing to be concerned about, but the upside certainly is there. So, Michael, thank you for tuning in tonight, and thanks for subscribing recently. James, what are your thoughts on your targets? Who do you want?
I'll just skip Dalton Schultz. I think he's kind of high on that list for everyone. Marcus Williams is second on my list for the safety spot. Kind of a weird fact here, but Marcus May, right, was taken 39th overall in the 2017 draft. And Marcus Williams was taken 43rd overall in the 2017 draft. So they were 4 picks apart in the draft. But Marcus Williams is going to be 25 years old. Marcus May is going to be 29 years old. So they were taken in the same draft, but crazy. 4 years apart in each. So for me, it's
such bad drafting too.
Yeah.
Why would you have not taken Marcus Williams? I get it. Like, they preferred Marcus May, obviously. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but a 4-year gap is mad. That's a huge gap. So if we're talking about age, why the hell did they do that? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and not to mention, we took a safety 6th overall right before that too. So that was the same draft. So yeah, that was a tough one to swallow. But Marcus May, yeah, I mean, he's not going to be on my list for guys that you're going to bring back. It kind of sucks to say that because I really do think he played well for us for those years. But the direction of the team, if you can throw a contract over to Marcus Williams and he accepts, I mean, 15 interceptions over his career here for the Saints. He's only missed 5 games, so he's a healthy player. 5 games in 4 years is on the defensive side is a pretty impressive number. I did throw in Jesse Bates also as sort of my backup to if we can't get Marcus Williams. So the theme with those 2 picks is, hey, can we get that veteran center fielder type of safety, right, in free agency to where we don't have to spend a high draft pick on a safety, but we can get a veteran presence in the secondary that's been there before, gets his hands on footballs, intercept the ball, create turnovers. So those are my 2 there at the safety spot. And I did throw Carlton Davis in as well at the corner spot.
Yeah.
Because I tried to find guys where we can add a veteran presence, but they're still at a reasonable age to where if we give them a 4-year deal, we still, we're not running into them being 30 years old when it's 2 years in or something like that. So Carlton Davis, 25 years old, we can consider him a veteran at this point. He's played 4 years. He's a Super Bowl champion. That's kind of big for me. I'm trying to add big game experience to this younger kind of roster, right? Younger generation of secondary players, at least, to where could we add that guy that can provide some swag to a room that needs it, hey, I've been there before, this is how you do it, but also performs well on the football field, which is the most important thing. And a lot of this is defensively for me, because that's where I ultimately think they add a lot of depth to the Falcons linebacker. It's a very hard name to pronounce.
I knew you were going to do this, you son of a biscuit. Go ahead.
Oluokun.
Yeah,
Oluokun is what I'm. Yeah, Oluokun. That's what I mean. Obviously, the tackles are one thing, right? It shows that they're around the ball a lot. It's not that be all. It's not the tell all in how they perform. But 192 tackles means he's doing something right? Like he's always around the football, but he really provided some pass coverage as well, which I think is what we were lacking at the linebacker spot. But cool fact about him there is there were 5 players, right? Because you look at that total number of tackles, that combines solo and assisted tackles. I try to sometimes look at just the solo tackles because that kind of has an indication that he's the headhunter. He's getting all the work done. And there were only 5 players with 100+ solo tackles. One being C.J. Mosley. He was 2nd overall in the NFL at 103 solo tackles. And Oluokun was 3rd in the NFL with 102 solo tackles. So a combination there of, a potential, also 26 years old. So we're still kind of in the age there.
Where is he? There he is.
There you go. Yeah. And so I like that. Not to say anything about Quincy Williams, but this team needs to also think about depth. Quincy Williams can play, but if we can upgrade positions, there's nobody that's safe from competition here. Everyone's got to be challenged. And so he's a spot for me. On the offensive side, my guard look is Laken Tomlinson from the 49ers. He plays left guard for the 49ers. I think we could very well move him to the right guard spot. Scheme familiarity,
Yep.
Saleh, LaFleur. He may cost more money, and he is 29 years old, but I have a little bit more leeway if we go with a 29-year-old guard, because I do think if we give him that 3-year, 4-year, offensive line's a weird spot where they can perform well at later ages, despite kind of the the cruel and the cruel nature of the position. And I'm going to give one last one.
Sure.
That's a guy who is probably not going to be signed within the first 3 weeks of free agency, but I have my radar on is Raheem Mostert. He had an injury in week 2, and I'm not giving him all. It would be a 1-year deal.
Sure.
But I think the way he ran the ball for the 49ers when he was healthy and they went to that Super Bowl, I thought is something that would be super complementary to how we see Michael Carter play with the broken tackles. If Raheem Mostert keeps that speed after, he had the little bit of I believe a knee or a foot injury. If he can keep that speed and he can hit those holes, I think it would be a really cool complement to a very cheap late free agency complement to Michael Carter.
Yeah, those are all really good players. Marcus Williams, I think he probably, of all of the good safety prospects that are out there, I think he's definitely one that will shake free because they are buried in cap debt.
Yeah.
And I know they've been in that circumstance in years past, so it could be that they make room for him. But I think he's going to be expensive, and I think they're going to let him go. I think that's my prediction for him. I am comfortable spending on a free agent safety more than I am drafting one early in the draft. I think that's one of the things that I see online is people are like, you don't want to spend a top 5 pick on a safety, but you're willing to give out a free agent contract to one. I am, because when the contract's over, goodbye. You've done your job. If you draft one in the top 5, you'd be foolish not to consider re-signing him. Kind of like that was the whole situation with Jamal Adams. We were going to have to pay him,
Right.
close to $20 million a year. And that's a problem. That's the issue. And so with the free agent, I'm okay with that. Drafting one in the top 5, I'm not real comfortable with that. All right, so I've got a couple of names. A lot of them have been hit on already. I'm angry that you named my one linebacker. That is a guy that I think they're going to be hot for him, right? Because you didn't mention Ulbrich. Ulbrich was on that staff with Aluakon, with the linebackers. He coached the linebackers before he became their interim defensive coordinator. I think that's a scheme fit. I think that's a familiarity fit. Hopefully he liked Ulbrich. And hopefully,
That bastard.
Yeah. Hopefully he's not real angry. Or excuse me, maybe they butted heads or something. Who knows? But I hope that they got along while he was in Atlanta. He's definitely on the list. We talked about wide receivers. Chris Godwin. I don't want to say I'm passing on him because obviously if it's an option, you have to consider it. He has 800 yards or more in the last 4 seasons. That's a lot of production. If we're going to go wide receiver and spend money on one, I would be okay with going with Christian Kirk. I know that he's not necessarily everybody's favorite, but I think that he would be one of those guys, kind of like a Corey Davis, can play outside, can play the slot a little bit as well. And we could probably get a deal with him in that 3 to 4 year range and potentially have an out after 2 years, kind of like what we do with Corey. So if they're not comfortable with going into the draft and drafting a top 10 wide receiver, go ahead and pay him. I think I'd be okay with that. He's 25 years old. He has pretty good production. And some people think he's going to get big bucks. I don't know about all of that. I don't think he's going to be crazy, crazy expensive. I think it's probably fair to say he's going to get paid around the same that Corey did. So maybe they won't be willing to do that. I don't know. But with Corey Davis potentially being out after next year, if it goes badly, you'd then have Christian Kirk there. So just a name, somebody worth mentioning. And then you threw out the name Laken Tomlinson. He's also on my list. James Daniels is my guard that I'm kind of high on right now. He offers some flexibility. He can play center. He played it, I think, his rookie year. He can play guard. He's been playing guard. He's not a superstar guard, but he's a very, very young guard. He's going to be 25 this year, I think. And very, very solid, very, very consistent. I'm all for getting James Daniels to be a part of our future. And the thing that I mentioned in my tweet about James Daniels is if you pay James Daniels now, if you go sign him, when his contract is ending, AVT will be ready to be re-signed. And so I think that the timeline to go sign a veteran guard is right now. So if you're paying Laken Tomlinson, who's 29 years old, fine. Give him a 2-3 year deal, and then AVT will be next. Same thing with James Daniels. Give him that 3-year, 4-year deal. By the time that contract is rolling out, you can probably move on and then re-sign AVT. I think that's the move that I'm pretty high on, and I would prefer that they do over drafting Linderbaum at 10 is go get your guard in free agency that, again, the contracts would line up. What's up?
We'll be signing Becton in 23, right?
We don't know about Becton. Yeah. Becton, I think 24, unless they 24. Give him the 5th year.
5th year option.
Yeah, the 5th year option. He's got to go earn it. He's got to go prove it. There's a video for that on the channel, too. There's a Becton video, too.
Yeah, not that it's guaranteed, but his contract due up would be in 23 or 24, or 24, I guess.
24, yep.
If he earns it, pay him all the money.
Yeah.
Because he's a left tackle or a right tackle, I'd say go sign him for sure. But he's got to go do it on the football field. He's got to stay healthy, all of these different things. There was only one other name I was going to throw out there before we move to our last segment, and that is safety Jordan Whitehead. This is a guy who is more of a box safety, but he does have upside in coverage. He's not like a Jamal Adams necessarily. He's not terrible in coverage. Not trying to bury Jamal, but Jordan's he's a really solid safety for the Bucs, and he's young too, and would provide a little bit of spunk on defense, a little bit of physicality, which we could use. Is he a free safety? No, he's a safety. He's a strong safety, I should say. I think we could probably use the free safety more, but it's an improvement to a position group that is sorely lacking, and I'd be open for that. All right, we're going to go to the chat. We're going to go to our last segment, and then we will put a bow on the show. Let's see here. Rick Fisher, he says, Orlando Brown Jr. The problem with Orlando is that the Chiefs paid a lot of assets to get him. So it's kind of like that Jamal Adams situation. They were never going to let Jamal Adams go because they gave up a lot to get him. So no chance Orlando Brown touches free agency. In my opinion, he's going to be paid big bucks by the Chiefs because they can't afford to not re-sign him. Let's see here. Save the money for A.B. Brown next year. I was gonna joke around. I was gonna joke around and say let's go get A.B. and a couple of other players. I can't remember who it was, but no thanks to A.B. And I know you're probably just kidding. At least I hope you are. Kyle Craig. It's been a while, Kyle Craig. It's good to see you in the chat. He says Mims can't get open. It's amazing how little separation he gets. Let's see. Godwin and Gallup both being hurt and getting a late start with Zach makes me nervous. That's a good point. It would be hard to build chemistry. D-Man is the Linderbaum truther in this chat. He says, cut McGovern and draft Linderbaum. That would make me ecstatic. I think it would make a lot of Jets fans happy. You're not by yourself with that one. Godwin fits perfect and maybe an injury discount. That could be. I don't think teams are going to be overly excited to pay somebody coming off of a pretty serious injury at the end of the year. He might go on. I'm wondering if he goes on a 1-year deal with the Bucs and just says, let me get another year in this offense and let me get another year to basically cash out. That's my guess with him. I don't think they'll tag him. I think that he will re-sign with the Bucs, though. They're going to try to win, assuming Brady's coming back. That would be interesting, though. If Brady retired, I think Godwin would leave. I think he would want to go. I think he would want to get out. Let's see. They wanted maturity to go. Oh, we're talking about something else. Sorry. Joe Campione, he says 3 to 4 year contracts for 24 to 26-year-old players who are scheme fits only. Scheme fits important. I agree. I can't say you can only sign 24 to 26-year-olds. Should they pay enormous money and long-term contracts to older players? No. But you can get these guys for a year or two, and it's not a big deal. It's important to do, I think. But I'm with you, Joe. We need to get players like that, kind of like Carl Lawson and Corey Davis. Get those guys in that age range and scheme fits. I think it's very important. Ooh, let's see here. Love Lakin Tomlinson. We got a comment for that. I think a lot of people will be really excited for that. I'm still very curious about LDT. I'm not sure he's coming back. Just the way he talked about it at the end of the season made me feel like he's not coming back. And may not even play football. Let's see. Alex Barisha. He says, the Jets fans are funny. They say Wilson needs weapons, and they say draft defense with all the top picks. I think we're going to do a balanced approach. I think that's going to be the case with the off season. They're going to draft early offense and early defense. They're going to sign free agents, defense and offense. There's no way they can't. Grant Root's talking about re-signings. We will get to that, so I'm going to skip that one. Vern, GVR is a captain and one of the locker room leaders. We need to bring someone in that can take that role. No, he is not. Get yourself out of here. GVR, Greg Van Roten, is that who we're talking about? How about them Jets? Welcome to the stream, new face. Happy to have you. He says, don't need a wide receiver in round 1. If they go get a free agent or if they trade for somebody, yeah, I agree with you. Then you can fill out the roster with some other guys. And in some ways that might be beneficial. Oh man, there's a lot of chat. You guys went crazy here. Gerald Everett, good name to throw out there. Tight end from the Rams and then the Seahawks this past year. Russ leaned on him heavy this year. And I think he's still kind of in that like 27, 28-year-old range. He's not terribly old.
I think 28 maybe. 28 maybe.
I think so. Get a veteran. Get a veteran tight end. You can't afford to not get one. I think that would be a huge mistake. People are talking about Antonio Brown in the chat. AJ Brown. How are we getting him? Good Lord. Dude, that would be amazing. AJ Brown is a stud. And he went off in that playoff game too. Man, he was a beast. All right, let's go to our super chat here. Michael, wow, okay. Very big. Let's tone that back just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He says, thanks for the shout out. Enjoy the show. I'd like to sign Schultz or Njoku, trade or sign a veteran wide receiver, sign the safeties, Reed or Bates, and then draft best player available. You will like my free agent targets video that's coming out on Saturday because Schultz is in that video and Reed is in that video. These are guys that I have in my top, and I think I made a list of 5 free agent targets, and both of those guys are in the list. So check that video out for sure. You guys got time for one more segment here?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it.
All right. We've got which Jets are we retaining? So we can literally just read the list of players that you have, or hopefully you did. I don't have the full list of who's pending, so hopefully you did your homework. But James, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So Braxton Berrios is number 1, and I think he's most likely number 1 on everyone's list. I do have LDT down.
Me too.
DT down because I do think. Listen, whether he's the starting guard, I don't know, but you gotta have bodies there that can play. We saw how many combinations of offensive linemen they had this year, so it was a great trade by Joe Douglas for the value that we got him for.
You mean for free?
Yeah, for free, right? Exactly. I have down Foley, Fatukasi, because I do think that interior defensive line depth also, and he's not a depth guy. He's a guy that's going to be there to play. But if you don't sign him, then I think you add another massive hole to this defense. I have Tevin Coleman down. I would like to bring back Tevin Coleman. I am a fan of his. I love the way he ran this year.
He did run good.
He did, man. He hit the hole. There was no second guesses, no double thinking it. He hit the hole. He was aggressive. He had injuries throughout the year and stuff like that, but I do think it would be nice to bring him back into that room. You have Carter, Coleman, and then if you sign a depth guy in free agency, you draft a guy later in the draft or whatever it is, then you kind of build up a new room for that younger guy potentially to step in when Coleman decides to walk away. Other than that, I'm not going to sit here and want to aggressively retain a lot of other guys that are free agents. I think they have the assets to build the depth in a lot of different places. Free agency mainly there to bring in a different crop of guys for this. For this depth chart that we're so desperately trying to fix here. So Braxton Berrios is number one on the list, and then a lot of other guys. I quite honestly, I'm okay with seeing them walk, and we bring in new blood.
Okay, fair enough. So you just have a couple of guys there, and that's fair. Mike, who's on your short list or your long list, whichever one you got?
Yeah, I got to start with Joe Flacco. I think he has a lot to give.
Good God.
I think Mike White has a lot to give. I think he's top of my list for sure. No, I'm just kidding with you. Come on now. All right. The fact that no one said anything scares me. So we'll save that for a different conversation. LDT, Braxton Berrios for sure. I disagree on Tevin Coleman. I actually have Keelan Cole on my retained list. I think that not knowing how the draft's going to go, it'd be good to have something there that we could have, not to say it makes the starting rotation. Obviously, the contract has to be right. So I get that. You're not going to just sign someone just to sit on the bench. But I thought Keelan Cole showed a lot of promise for me. I'm looking through my list here. Foley Fatukasi is high on my list as well, so I agree with James there. I think we need as much depth as we can, especially given the injuries that we saw. And then, so Foley, Berrios, Keelan Cole. I actually was interested in, depending on the contract, at times, Dan Feeney, I thought was okay. I'm again, not knowing what we do in the draft, I kind of kept him on my maybe list. LDT, and then at that point, I'm kind of okay with going in a different direction. I made note of Jamison Crowder, Marcus May, but there's just too many other plans in terms of getting new talent, younger talent that I don't think we would get the best deal or the return bang for our buck with their contracts versus some of these other guys. So if I had to give you top three, it would be Foley, Berrios, and probably LDT, and I'll throw one more in there, which I would be okay with keeping Keelan Cole. Those would be my top four names for me.
I didn't have Keelan Cole on my list, but re-signing him for continuity's sake, we talked about that earlier, I think that's a fine idea. The production wasn't there, but it was also a really tough year for the offense in general. And I think that if things even out a little bit, if the offensive line plays well at the beginning of the year, Zach's going to be more comfortable next year. So maybe he has a better year in 2022. So I think that's a fine move. So here's what I have. I said if LDT can play football, wants to play football, I think you got to try to bring him back. It's so funny you say that, Isaac, right? I was surprised neither one of these guys said that. Eddie Pinheiro is on my list. I'm bringing him back, yeah. I think you bring him back, and I think you maybe even try to find another leg through undrafted free agency or the free agent market for some competition. But yeah, I think Eddie deserves to come back. After the shit show of kicking that we've had, he was at least competent as a kicker. My big thing with Eddie, and we talked a little bit about it, the trajectory of his kicks are a little bit concerning. He does seem to kick it low. And it's not just blocks, it's also the distance of the field goals. I'm worried about him being able to drill, a 53-yarder, a 55-yarder. Not that that's like a must-have, but it would be helpful to have a guy who has the leg to get it there. So Eddie Piñeiro's on my list. LDT is a guy that I would love to have back if he's willing to play football or able to. Morgan Moses, I would bring him back for depth. Hopefully that's the move. I would love to have Morgan back. I don't know if he's going to sign back with the Jets, but that would be a great move too. I have a surprising name on my list, Jamison Crowder. I don't know if he wants to be back with the Jets, and I think that's the big question. I don't think he's going to be very expensive to retain, and I don't think he's going to get a lot of money in free agency. He's not old, but because he's been on the Jets for a couple of years now, the production's a little bit lacking, and so NFL teams are smart. They watch films, so if they see that he's still got it, obviously they're going to be interested, but I don't think he's going to get a big contract from anybody. He may be looking at another 1 or 2 year deal. And so for that reason, I say try to bring Jamison Crowder back. I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't. I have Braxton on my list. I'm a little bit worried that it's taken as long as it has, but free agency is still like 50 days away, so we definitely have some time here. Braxton should be brought back. Again, I've said it a million times, and I'll say it one more time. Special teams alone, he is worth being re-signed. So even if he offered nothing offensively, special teams wise, he is very much worth returning to the team. Javelin Guidry, another name that nobody mentioned. He is up for a new contract with better pass rush. I still believe he has what it takes to be a good slot cornerback. I don't know how the Jets feel about him, but I would bring him back. I don't think it would cost a whole lot, and it would probably be a 1-year deal. So I say bring back Javelin Guidry. And I'm going to change my list last minute. I thought it was an interesting comment by Vern. He says, Flacco, they just traded for him. He thinks he's going to be back. I think Joe Flacco hates the Jets, but there's something about it. I don't know why he does, but it seems like he just hates us. Because all we want is for him to love us, and he just never wants to love us back. Maybe they will bring him back, though, because it did seem like they had Zach and he had a decent relationship. It seemed better than the one that he had with Darnold. They seem to get along okay. Zach and Joe. So if he's on board and if he will be willing to love us back, I think I would consider that. I think that's fine.
Why don't you love me?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like Forrest Gump. Why don't you love me, Jenny?
Come on.
Maybe I should make that like a NYJ Matt. He makes like all those funny things. I'll put the Jets are Forrest Gump and then Jenny is Joe Flacco. That's my whole list. And so that's going to really tick some people off. I do not have Fadakasi on my list. Here's why. And it's very simple. It's money. What will it cost to re-sign him? I had been comparing him all season, and it was before the season, and people were getting really angry at me on social media about it when I was saying that they're going to probably let him go. It reminds me of Damon Snacks Harrison. He's not going to get the same contract because Damon got a huge contract from the Lions. Yeah. But what is he going to go for if he hits the free agent market? He's probably the best run-stuffing defensive tackle who offers some upside at pass rush. I don't know if I'm comfortable doling out, upwards of 7-8 mil per year annually. Is that what you think he would go for? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was thinking probably around 9 or 9 per year or so. That's what I was thinking.
I'm out on that. I'm not paying him for that. And I know that he does bring a lot of value, so maybe that makes me an ass. But part of the decision to not re-sign him is also because I think that the Jets are going to use JFM inside more than they did this past year with the injury to Carl. I think they're going to push him on pass rushing downs to the inside. Mm-hmm. Still have Sheldon Rankins. They did draft Jonathan Marshall last year, so I think there's something there. They kept him. Police are after you. We got the Indy 500 going outside your window. So for those reasons, I'm out on Foley Fadakasi, which sucks because he's a really good dude and a good leader. Yeah. But I'm not willing to pay him that much money. We have other positions I would like to draft. And again, you can go find yourself a nice defensive tackle in the draft in the later rounds, and I think that can work. I think that's what a lot of teams would do that are cap savvy. They will, for a defensive tackle, go ahead and find somebody that they can replace on the super cheap. I mean, we're going to save, if you say $9 million, potentially $8-9 million, you're saving $7 to $8 million by drafting somebody to potentially replace him. So. And I'm also hoping that Jonathan Marshall is just, somebody. Like, he can play some downs on this defense next year. So,
well, I think that's the thing. You have someone with Foley, and you put yourself up there. Are you going to get the same consistency in production?
You probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't. And that's the thing. And that's why you guys saying keep him is not a stupid thing to say. And there's a lot of people that agree with that take to keep Foley because of the veteran leadership and because of the presence that he is on the inside. He's certainly no slouch.
What year is he in?
Good question. I think he's still on his rookie contract, so 4th year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, now I'm getting the hate. This is what I'm ready for. I want you guys to get mad at me every once in a while. Vern says you can't lose your best run defender when the when the rest of your team is awful against the run. Come on, John.
There you go.
This is true. You're not wrong. I'm thinking about the money though. I want to make sure that we have money to spread evenly on the team. And again, sinking 8 to 9.
No, I was just gonna say I love it. I hope they keep giving you shit. Give them all the shit.
Relax. It's one person. With you, it's like 20. All right. That is that's
a perfect way to end the show.
Yeah, it is pretty much the end of the show there. We all pretty much agree on most of those names. We'll go ahead and we'll do the last one because it is really, truly just a quick wide receiver one. So who would you trade for? There are 3 names, and this will be the end. Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons, DK Metcalf, of the Seattle Seahawks, or Amari Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys. You can just say the name. You don't have to say the compensation. If you were going to trade for one of those 3, and you have to pick one of them, who are you trading for? Mike, you are up.
I'm tied between. I'm stuck between Calvin and DK for me. If I'm going to just pick one, I'm going to go DK just because I think he would want to play for the Jets the most, and I also think he's a freaking monster among men based on his Olympic tryouts and based on how ripped he looks. He's just a beast at his size. So this is the fanboy in me. I'm going to go DK. I just think it would be crazy.
It would be very intriguing, and that would be the Ole Miss reunion, he and Elijah.
Yeah.
I'll let James go, but I do want to say sometimes having that familiarity on a team, I think can chill a guy out. I know some people are saying he's kind of whiny and dramatic, and maybe that's the case. That's the thing, Grant Reed. I don't know if I'd go that aggressive, but I would be willing to pay the price for DK. And some people are really, really against it. I don't know, man. That is an outside presence that we have not had since Brandon Marshall, and before that, who the hell ever was like that?
Right.
He's a monster. He's a monster.
He's closer to Megatron than I think Braylon in terms of what he can do.
Yeah, Braylon Howard, that's fair. Kev Chata says draft picks are like babies, priceless. Draft the wide receivers. Fair point. All right, James, who are you taking? Ridley, Metcalf, or Cooper?
I'm gonna go DK. And I know that's against my Alabama guys, Cooper and Calvin Ridley. But Cooper, injury-wise, he's not always healthy. Very talented, but I think he would cost the least out of all of them. But if we're gonna do this thing, let's do it, right? And Calvin Ridley, again, another very talented guy, but. I don't want to speak on his situation, but you would have to be fully confident if you're going to give up assets that he is, all in to play. So if we're going to do this thing, I'd be all in on DK Metcalf. I wouldn't give up the 4th pick, but I would consider, if we had to part with 10, right? If we wind up with Kayvon at 4 and someone was like, hey, you're going to get Kayvon Thibodeau at 4, you want to give up 10 for DK Metcalf and that's all you had to give up, I would say yes. I would say yes, take it, and then I have 2 second-round picks, and we go from there.
Yeah, I'm on the fence between Cooper or DK, and I think I lean DK. So we're actually all unanimous on that one, which I was not expecting to see. I think Elijah Moore being on the team would be a big factor. I think it would be helpful. And DK, I think he automatically comes in, and he is definitely the number one target. And it solves that. I think it solves that problem, man. And on a down year last year for him, he had just under 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. So
Gino at quarterback.
Right. That's the thing. And again, I see it on social media. People are talking about his route running, and sure, he's probably not the best route runner. His 3-cone at the scouting combine was pretty poor. That's not why you have a DK Metcalf on your team. He is not going to be a precise route runner. He is going to dominate the outside, though. And Zach, in certain circumstances, it would be wonderful if he had a guy that was 6'4", 220, 230 pounds, and he doesn't even need to be wide open. Yeah. Just throw him the ball. So I'm all in on that idea. That would be incredible.
Opens up Corey Davis, too.
It opens up everything. Opens up the running lanes. Elijah Moore, holy moly. So we are going to wrap up the show here. The one thing I was going to say is Connor Hughes did tease that he thinks they might trade that number 10 overall pick for a player. And if you're going to give up number 10, I think I'm only comfortable giving up DK. That would be the only guy I would be willing to do that.
Agreed.
All right. Guys, thank you so very much for tuning in for this episode. Next week, it's going to be Senior Bowl heavy, and we are going to do our very first mock draft, baby. Here we go. Live mock draft. We're only going to do 3 rounds, though. I don't think we're going to do all 7. But we'll do a pre-Senior Bowl mock draft. That'll be a lot of fun, and we'll talk about some position groups that the Jets are going to be very interested in. Tight end is definitely there. O-line is definitely there. Wide receivers are there. Edge rushers. So we're going to be talking about all these different groups. And I just want to thank you again for tuning in. Please be on the lookout for some of the videos. And again, just thank you a million. Really do appreciate it. Mike, any last words you got for us?
Oh, another great stream. Another great session with the chat. Thank you guys for joining in, and we'll see you next week.
There you go. Robbie Oak tuning in at the last second. What's up, Robbie Oak? James, any last second? You got any last second comments?
No, it was a good night. Hopefully we get some similar football this weekend like we did last weekend.
Good call.
Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the night, the rest of the week. And Henrik Lundqvist, sorry to throw Rangers in there, but I'm a big Ranger fan. I'm going to be at Madison Square Garden Friday night for Lundqvist's retirement, jersey in the rafters. So congratulations to him, and hopefully if you guys are hockey fans, you tune in to watch.
Silver Fox.
There you go.
All righty, that's going to be it. Go Jets. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys next week. You guys will see me this weekend, hopefully. Word from my daughter. Peace, guys. Have a great night.